slept less as you submitted assignments all through the night and into the morning. There have been many aha moments, many now I see times, but then again, many times of anxiety and frustration as you work through the 11 courses in our curriculum. Now, that is at an end. You have completed a difficult or rigorous program in electronic e-discovery project management. Each one of you, our graduates, has much to be proud of. 7.5 months ago, you started on this journey across the mountaintops with a sense of your own ability and a strong commitment. You have traversed our courses showing ability and grace at every moment. For many of you, this was a new world. Online, synchronous, collaborative learning. You had to master technology and adapt to a new learning model that challenges the boundaries of traditional education. Mastering the new, the novel, and change is not easy, but you did it. Our mission at Bryan University is to liberate the greatness in our students and to provide new and exciting opportunities while addressing important social needs. Electronic discovery is more than a new field of endeavor. The health of our public dispute resolution system, our civil justice system, hangs in the balance. Our system of justice can only work if we have effective ways of getting at the truth. The traditional truth-seeking methods of cross-examination and trial have served us well over the years. Who can forget the great scene from the movie, A Few Good Men, where Colonel Jessup screams, "You can't handle the truth," and then convicts himself with his own words and admissions. Great drama, great movie. But the 21st century brings a new method of getting to the truth, and I submit an even better and more reliable method. Buried in our voluminous vaults of electronic information is that elusive truth that we seek in all disputes. We just need to dig it out. It's there. We just need to know how to locate it, preserve it, capture, and identify the telling information. The truth-seeking stage has thus moved. The drama has a new locale. We must now cross-examine not merely witnesses at trial, but primarily, I submit, electronically stored information that surrounds all our everyday activities and surrounds everything that we do. You, our Bryan graduates, are the directors and actors on this new stage, skilled in these new search and truth-seeking methods, an inhabitant of and at home in this new territory, this new ecosphere of digital information. You now have the skills and the understanding to bring the truth contained in digital data to light, to make the truth appear. This is no small thing. Indeed, few things are as important. You have been wonderful students. We at Bryan University know you will be equally wonderful e-discovery professionals. As your dean, I extend to you my congratulations and wish that you enjoy with great relish this day of celebration. It is now my great pleasure to introduce our commencement speaker, United States Magistrate Judge Paul W. Grimm. Magistrate Grimm serves as the full-time magistrate judge for the United States District Court for the District of Maryland. He was appointed in 1997 and became Chief Magistrate Judge in 2006. In September of 2009, he was appointed by the Chief Justice of the United States to serve as a member of the Advisory Committee for Federal Rules of Evidence. Additionally, Judge Grimm is an adjunct professor at the University of Maryland School of Law, where he teaches evidence and is also taught trial evidence, pretrial procedure, and scientific evidence. He is also an adjunct professor of law at the University of Baltimore School of Law, where he teaches courses regarding e-discovery and trial practices. Judge Grimm is a very frequent lecturer that I know quite well from his presentations at CLE programs and other events around the United States discussing the impact of electronic discovery on our civil justice system. We are pleased and happy that Judge Magistrate Grimm has taken the time to devote himself to this field. In large part, he has guided the way with others in our judiciary into this new domain. He's authored a number of important decisions in the e-discovery field that are the textbook cases that we all teach in our e-discovery courses. Thompson v. HUD, Hobson versus the Mayor and City Council of Baltimore, Lorraine v. Markle, American Insurance Company, CNA, the United Under Armour, Inc., famous Victor Stanley Corporation versus Creative Pipe, and perhaps my favorite e-discovery case of all, Mancia v. Mayflower. In addition to that, Magistrate Judge Grimm has authored numerous books, chapters, and treatises on the subject. I'm very happy to present to you Magistrate Judge Grimm to deliver our commencement address. Magistrate Judge?
How's that? Dean Hamilton, thank you very much for the generous introduction. And to the graduates, let me add my congratulations to you, along with those from the Dean and from the President of your university. You spent almost the last 8 months in a very intense progression of courses that built one upon the other, being exposed to technical and legal concepts and practical considerations, and you now have a certificate that allows you to identify yourself as an e-discovery project manager. There has never been a better time, I think, in the history of our civil litigation system to have this credential. And that is because the evolution of how information is created and maintained has come to the point where, from the time that many of your instructors began their legal careers when we were a tangible document-based system, pretty much everything now is digital. And the creation of information and the maintenance of information and the use of information is digital. Moreover, the variety of types of digital media, whether it's from work-related bases or internet sources that we go online and use, or whether it's social media that we use in our personal and in our work life, because these increasingly available with unlimited capacity, devices keep getting cheaper in cost and smaller in size and greater in their multiple interrelated platforms. They are used by more and more people, and as a result of that, it is difficult for most folks today to imagine how they managed 5 years ago to use digital information. Moreover, separate and apart from the platforms under which this digital information is maintained, is uses which did not exist some years ago. 5 years ago, Facebook was viewed as being largely the province of college age and high school age students who were using it for keeping in touch with their friends and those who they gave permission to share information with themselves on. Now, you only have to look at any advertisement on any television show or any sporting event, and you will see that large businesses ask you to like them on Facebook and to follow them on Twitter. So they have used social media as a method to integrate into the way in which they operate and do business. Indeed, email, which is a manner of communication that finds itself into the way in which people interact and into lawsuits where they have disagreements over how they interact. Email, many people think, is somewhat passé, and that's sort of the equivalent now of a handwritten document made with a quill pen on parchment paper. Now we have text messages, we have tweets, we have much more spontaneous and instantaneous communication. I have 2 daughters who are still in school, away in college, and if they want to send something to me, they don't send me an email. I get a tweet or a text message. And all you had to do was look at the press in the last few days to see reports about how, as part of this recent election that we have just completed, many candidates for all different types of offices managed to communicate not only with expensive television advertisements and posters and face-to-face debates, but also with tweets and use of social media. So these devices have completely integrated themselves into the way in which we do our work, in which we manage our social lives, in which we recreate. And if we're using these things for legal and appropriate means, we're using them for illegal and inappropriate means. So it is not at all unusual to see in criminal cases the use of digital information for identity fraud or for trying to assume someone's identity or get their credit card or other personal information and create bogus accounts, or to send text messages to communicate threats or commit extortion, or to post information on a social media site that would be relevant to members in a criminal conspiracy or part of a gang. So these devices are here to stay. The fact that they change so frequently, they become cheaper, and they have greater capability is such that in the foreseeable future we will never expect to have them go away. And as a result of that, you come to your new certification at a time when the greatest aspect of what happens in civil discovery in state and federal cases is, to a certain extent, the management of electronic information. The lawyers who have been your faculty that you've talked to, they're terrific about knowing how the rules of evidence apply, the rules of civil procedure, to put these things together, to make arguments, to file legal briefs. But so often the lawyers who have the knowledge of the legal framework in which the disputes are resolved do not have the knowledge of the type of technical information that they need. What's the most efficient method to search to find information that would be cost effective? What's the platform on which this is kept? How is this information stored? When you want to do a preservation, how do you do that? What does a litigation hold look like? How do you monitor that litigation hold? If you want to disable an automatic function of a digital records maintenance system so that it no longer overrides information after 30 days or 60 days so that you can preserve it if you need it for use in litigation, how do you actually do that? How do you conduct the search? How do you sample to make sure that you're neither over-inclusive nor under-inclusive in what you looked at? All of these issues, I've had the chance, as a result of Dean Hamilton sending me some links to your website for your university, I've had a chance to read each of the course syllabi for the courses that you've had to take in the last 7.5 months. And you have built an incremental process where you have gotten not only the theoretical but the practical information as well. The way in which what you have learned becomes important is when I have the privilege of talking to lawyers and judges and teaching them this area involving electronic discovery as it deals with civil litigation. I like to say that you need to keep in mind 5 sort of independent yet interrelated phases that sometimes operate simultaneously and sometimes operate in sequence. And they all start with the letter P. And if you understand what these 5 concepts are that start with the letter P, and you have an appreciation, as you do from your coursework, of how they interrelate, then that's the building blocks from being able to be an effective e-discovery project manager that allows you to understand how the litigation process works, understand the technical products that are being used by the client that you represent, understand that litigation is supposed to occur in a proportional fashion so that what it costs to resolve the case is not disproportionately expensive to what the case's value is, and also produce a result which is fair. So what are these 5 concepts that you will, in the course of using your new credential, come into contact with, and that hopefully will make you believe, after you've been out in such a short time, that the skills and the information that you got in your coursework prepared you better for that than you certainly were before you embarked upon this educational journey. Well, the first P is preservation, and I know that you studied that in your coursework. There is a common law duty to preserve, which has existed for time immemorial in our legal system. It comes from concepts where there's a Latin phrase that's been around since the 1600s. Omnia praesumuntur in odium spoliatoris. All things are presumed against one who despoils evidence. So there's a duty to preserve information. Well, what does that mean? Well, if you have a case that turns on the intent of a corporation in launching a new product, what were they thinking, what were they planning on doing, then what's the best way to figure out what's going on in the collective minds of the corporation? Well, email traffic might be very important to be able to look at. So how do we make sure that if we have a dispute involving a 6-month period of time in which the corporation was undertaking to launch a new product, that if there's a dispute about what was going on there and what people were thinking, that we would be able to show what our folks were thinking and get into the real state of mind of what was going on? Well, email might be very much an example of the kind of information you would want to have. Would it be reasonable to foresee that if you are put on notice by a competitor that they think your new product interferes and infringes with their intellectual property, that you had better preserve information that deals with how that product was developed and what efforts were made to make sure that it didn't infringe upon another competitor's intellectual property? Of course, that would be a foreseeable thing to do, but how do you actually implement it? And the coursework that you've had has taught you how to go in and to identify a litigation hold and to figure out who are the key custodians and how to manage it and update it and audit it to make sure that it's done well. So the preservation P is very important, and it increasingly involves the need to make sure that when the duty to preserve information that's going to be important to resolve a civil dispute has been triggered, that the information is preserved to be used as evidence at the case. So that's the first P, and the coursework that you have taken uniquely qualifies you to be successful in understanding what these obligations are. The next word that starts with a P, you are also very familiar from your coursework as I have reviewed your syllabus, and that is processing. Information exists not in one big digital bucket, but in many buckets. You've got information that's cloud-based. You've got server-based information. You have legacy information. You have backup information. You have external hard drives. You may have integrated information where you have multiple shared servers that you use, and so it's an interactive database that many people have access to. So one of the things you have to do is, how do we process this? What's the form in which this data will take? How will we have it in a form that we can search, that we can identify it? And do we have it with all of the, in a format that can allow us to use it? Do we have the metadata that's going to allow us to have access to it and to know what all the parts are there and whether it's been changed or operated? Do we have the information we need to be able to use this information, even if we've preserved it? Having it preserved in some static fashion is a far cry from having it readily available to be able to be used as evidence in a case. So processing becomes very important. The form of production becomes important. How it's maintained, how it is searched, all of those are processing-related issues. And again, your coursework has prepared you for this important aspect of the process that involves e-discovery management. The next is privilege, and I know that you've talked about that. The scope of discovery of civil cases in the United States is information which is relevant to the claims and defenses that have been pleaded, but which is not privileged. And you have the attorney-client privilege, and you have many other privileges, such as the spousal communication privilege, the doctor-patient privilege, psychoanalyst, therapist, and patient privilege. So there are many privileges that exist, and privileged information is information that is not within the scope of discovery. But if you accidentally produce privileged information because you didn't call it out of the digital media before you turned it over to your adversary, then the privilege may have been waived, and it may have been waived not just for the information that was disclosed, but for undisclosed information that relates to the same information. And that deals with that new evidence rule 502, which I believe some of your coursework talked about, and that is a rule that was specifically adopted in September 2008, to be able to allow people to enter into non-waiver clawback agreements that would allow them to cost-effectively produce information, but without having to read each one screen by screen, which is very expensive, And then if they find that they accidentally or inadvertently produce privileged information, to be able to assert the privilege after they've already produced it. Again, that aspect of privilege is something which you have dealt with in your coursework. The next P is production. You have to actually give it to the other side, which means that you've got to find a way to process it and review it to determine, of all the digital information that you have, what's relevant to what they've asked for, what's privileged that we're not going to give them, and then what do we give them? We only want to give them what they've asked for and they're legitimately entitled to. So how do we process all that? Do we give it to them in a static form? Is it searchable PDF? Is it with the load files? How do we produce it so that it is in a usable form? And your coursework prepared you very well for dealing with this aspect of the whole process. The final P, which comes last but it is paramount, and it's the umbrella that operates over all of the other processes, and that's proportionality, which is a fundamental concept that most state and the federal rules have. The federal rules deals in Rule 26B2C, which means that we have no system of dispute resolution that we can be proud of if it costs you $500,000 in expense to resolve a dispute that's worth $100,000. That's not an efficient way of doing it. So proportionality is something which permeates the entire process, and your skill set that you've learned in your coursework absolutely makes you at the very point of the spear in being able to make sure as you manage these projects that they're proportional. How do you sample? How do you use things such as computer-assisted research so that you don't have to take a look at a terabyte of information by having the lawyer look at each screen one at a time and costing $500 million in order to do so? So you design a search. You do sampling to make sure that it's neither over nor under-inclusive, that your recall and your precision rates are adequate. You produce the information. You sample and you take a look at some eyeballs on, but other stuff that you just let the computer make the pick for you because you have designed the search in a way that makes it effective in order to do that. The ability to be able to search through, integrate, and analyze information without a human person having to review every single document through uses of sampling and computer systems of searching using computer search methodology, that is one of the most important ways of achieving proportionality. And the process by which we do that requires cooperation, not because cooperation implies that you sacrifice defenses that are legitimate, but that you recognize that your client gets a tremendous advantage by keeping costs down for itself and avoiding being brought into entangling motions practice and other litigation disputes before the court, which delay the resolution and add to the expense. So these 5 Ps, preservation, processing, privilege, production, and proportionality, which are the essence of successful management of an electronic discovery system, are all aspects that your coursework in the last 7.5 months has prepared yourself for. So right now you're probably a little bit tired. You probably have an overfull plate. In the last 7 months, you felt like you had more things on your plate than you could possibly manage to get through. You did it nonetheless, and now you have ahead of you the rewards that you will reap as a result of it. So I'd like to join with Dean Hamilton, with your president, and with the moderator and your other professors, in congratulating you for your stamina and the fact that you stuck with it. You have the credentials now that I hope will open the door for you to have far more interesting, far more enjoyable, far more meaningful experiences, and combine the legal knowledge with the technical skill necessary not only to survive in this digital litigation environment, but to thrive. And on behalf of all your faculty, I join with you congratulating you and wishing you the best in your endeavors. Thank you very much, and good luck.
Thank you very much, Judge Grimm. Before you depart, though, I'd like to let you know that we will be sending you a plaque as part of our thanks for your inspirational presentation to us and outlining the 5 Ps, which I'll be memorizing myself and keeping in mind in my practice.
Just send me a digital plaque there, Bill. That would be perfectly fine, and we'll have a holograph instead of an actual one on my wall. I will very proudly put it in my library, law library, where we have settlement conferences and other conferences, as a reminder of the important work that you are doing at Bryant, and how important the work is that these students have acquired. And I thank you for this and this opportunity to speak with you and to wish you the very best in your personal and your professional endeavors. Thank you all very much.
Just let me read, if you would, the plaque to the audience. It basically says, Bryan University hereby presents a certificate of appreciation to the Honorable Paul W. Grimm for his presentation of the commencement address to the graduating class of Bryan University's e-discovery project management program, and for his work and dedication to the advancement of e-discovery education. Again, thank you very much, Judge Grimm.
Thank you, Dean. I will display it proudly in my conference room. Thank you and good luck, folks.